what's also interesting is what you said before. A follower is a great leader, will be a good leader. Why do you think that's the case?
Welcome to the Point of View Show. My name's Andrew Tran. I'm your host. This show highlights business professionals in Asia and around the world to get an understanding on what makes them effective, how they do it, and advice to help you grow in leadership, branding, marketing, and sales. For more information, head over to my website, www.andrewtran.asia. Before we get into it, smash that subscribe button and click notifications whether or not you're listening or watching this. It helps me a ton and it helps other like-minded people find these episodes a lot easier. Now let's get on with the show. My next guest is Khushboo Nangalia. She is an entrepreneur, an award-winning marketer, and founder of Beyond 99, a global digital growth agency based out of Malaysia. Our chat was really cool because I got to ask her about her agency, how she got started in it. It's a really interesting story behind that. Digital marketing, what it takes to become a really good digital marketer in this day and age. But more importantly, what I really wanted to speak to her about was leadership and the characteristics when it comes to becoming a really good leader, and also advice for those around the small to medium businesses who have to manage multiple people wearing multiple hats at the same time. What advice can she give to those smaller based businesses who have to lead and manage at the same time? So it was a really interesting chat. I hope you guys like it. Without further ado, give it up for Khushboo Nangalia. Khush, how's things going?
Things are going great. It's going phenomenally awesome. We just launched a workshop about 45 days ago, and we have been able to help more than 500 people. I was just digesting that information last night because it was a holiday in Malaysia. So we just got a breather for myself, because we have been non-stop 7 days a week for the last exactly 59 days.
Crazy. That's so crazy. So for anyone that's watching or listening at home, you're co-founder or founder of Beyond 99. Is that correct?
Founder of Beyond 99.
Founder of 99. Yeah. So, you're based in Malaysia, and I think we spoke about it off camera a little while back as well. Like, you moved from India to Malaysia to kind of start this business. How was that like in the early years?
So I did my first, I would say I co-founded a company where I was the founding member and not a co-founder back in 2008, which was about 12 years ago. So I've had an experience, but for anyone who is getting into this game, it's a different scenario when you're a founder and when you're co-founder. You are a part of a vision in the first case, whereas you have a vision in the other case. And when you have to drive it, there's an extra sense of responsibility that happens. So Beyond 99 was a second venture that we went into, and it has got initiated from the land of Malaysia, though it's not my own country, but it's very much owned now because I've been there for 6 years. Of course, it's a foreign land and it comes with its own fair challenges to say. But I think those challenges are what makes us more resilient and more tenacious to say. It's even more exciting to work with people who you are very new in terms of the culture. You're not born and brought up, so you don't have contacts like anybody else would have from the universities and from college. So networking is a whole different challenge. But at the same time, the country is very warm. When it brought in the challenges, it also brought in love. So we had that combination. But at the same time, of course, being based here, to be able to decide to incorporate a new company, I think that was a journey. It took us a few months to take that step. It took me a few nights to decide whether we want to take that plunge or we don't want to take that plunge. But I would be very candid. It wasn't an easy time in my life, and I was feeling like I couldn't do it, because you all have naysayers in your life, and I'm also blessed with them, and they kind of made me feel very continuously that probably you don't have, as you say, you don't have what it takes to run a company, or you don't have what it calls for running an organization. And that quite hit me hard, because when it comes from people you are already aware of and from your close circle, it touches you. If it's somebody who you don't know or from an acquaintance, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So indeed, it was a journey. But I would definitely love to share, Andrew, one thing. What made me take this decision at the end of the day was just one fine night while I was lying down. I just imagined myself 5 years down the line. I'm doing something great and something nice. Maybe nothing about running a company, but, and would I think back that in my late 20s, I wish I would have done that? Would I feel that? And I said, yes, I would definitely feel that. So when I realized that it would give me a sense of regret, I said, better fail than to live with regret.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. I support you 100% with that in mind. My background, obviously, like we're all business owners here in this kind of day and age. I kind of had that mentality coming through as a fighter, as an athlete as well. It's like, hey, this strategy may or may not work, but you tried hard. Let's go, let's push. And then we learn from it. And I like what you used before, how you said, I was blessed with some of the naysayers. So for those who are watching or listening, what you're saying is that you're like, hey, I've got haters like everyone else, but I use that as fuel, fuel for my fire to kind of grow and to kind of look back and say, hey, I've done this. I did it my way. And look at the success from that as well. So that is awesome. And I think this leads into what we want to try and talk about today, Kush, which is leadership. And, being a leader in yourself, you're doing great stuff right now on LinkedIn. So anybody who's watching or listening, check her out on her LinkedIn profile. She's doing some amazing work with some live Q&As, interviews with various other leaders within the field and different experts as well. So coming through. So definitely check that out. But with this particular episode and with you yourself, Kush, like leadership, like what does leadership mean to you?
I think I came across this term very recently, and I've always believed in that, but I didn't quite knew that there was a term like this, and that was servant leadership. It actually means basically is where you go ahead and you are of course leading it, but you are a servant to the people who are associated to you. It's kind of your focus is their success, and you're working for them, you're working for their growth, and that would ultimately lead to your growth. I mean, that would happen by default, but that's the byproduct. But your core objective is employ first, help people, and that's my sense of leadership, and that's what I'm building towards in today's scenario. Earlier there was a different understanding of leadership in my mind, where I used to always have an idea of, if I can follow, I can be a leader. I always had this in mind. A follower is the best leader. So I always thought this as my mindset of being a leader. But very recently, I was talking to some of my founder friends, and I came across this term, and I was fascinated by it when I read about it and went across. And yes, that's it. That's what I'm inspired for. If I'm able to empower my people, if I'm able to, if they feel like they grew, they feel like they went ahead and they became a better person than they were yesterday or even a month back, then I think that's the real leadership all about. So I believe in servant leadership, and I'm working towards that direction right now.
Great. That's really interesting. And what's also interesting is what you said before. A follower is a great leader, will be a good leader. Why do you think that's the case?
Because I would say, Andrew, why do I think a follower is the best leader? Is because a leader, I mean, a person, let's just call it a person. I'm not even calling it a leader. A person who wants to empower others or help others have to first be able to have that capability of learning from others. You aren't the almighty. Let's just get that. You are helping a certain group of people. There are people who are better than you in the world, and you must know how can you get the best from them, so that you can, as we say, empower, influence, uplift, elevate your community, your audience, or your people around. So unless I have that inner hunger of learning, inner hunger of growing, and following some of the top leaders in the segment I am in, let's say in the niche I am in, then I don't think I'll be able to guide my own community, my own audience, or my own people out there. How can I do that when I am not myself following? So I always have been motivated by leaders who are not dominating, or they don't empower or impose their wishes. There's a huge difference that is between a boss and a leader, and we have this corporate culture of boss in some of the Asian cities or countries, to say, and I'm of course in other parts of the world also, in Europe also I've heard it. So it's not that it's only here, but it's there in other parts of the world. It is a performed method. But if you are planning to work with millennials, with Gen Z, this is not going to work at all. They are very passionate people. They're driven by emotions. If you want to make, if you want to make sure that they give their 1000% to the organization, you have to give them 10,000, and only then it will work. Otherwise, it won't.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, talking about like following, learning off good leaders, role models, mentors, and then being able to translate that to your leadership style as well. And I think you touched on it before, how your leadership has kind of changed from what it was then, and to like become more of a servant type of leader. Just kind of backtrack a little bit. Like, at what point did you kind of did the switch? Was it over the last maybe 18 months or so? Was it quite recently?
Okay, so I just go back a little bit on the follow side of it. I want to add one quick pointer as well. When I say follow, there's also a quick phenomenon that I keep that in my mind. Okay. So I'm very, very, let me give you a bit of an outline on myself. Okay. So I'm a person who is quite go-to kind of, like I'll just go and make sure things are run and things get done. So I'm a personality which believes in time, speed, scalability, and making sure it's done. So I'm not super detailed oriented. I have got amazing business partners to take care of that, knowing. So I had a personality which was more about making sure this is a vision. Let's run towards it. Let's make sure it's done. But in that process, I learned it's very important to be able to get feedback from your team as well, from your people as well. So when I say a follower side of it, I also want to bring across a point that do listen to your people, follow them too, because when you get feedback from them, you grow with that feedback. So I have inculcated that in me, and I think this was something that I built about 2 years ago. Okay. And the servant leadership was something which I only came across like 2 months ago. It was very recent, very, very recent. 2 months ago is what I have been just acquainted with the term. So I'm so recent with it that I would say my practice is not as much as it would be in the earlier, but I realized this is what exactly I have been building myself for the past 2 years. But sometimes you do things unaware that there is a terminology behind it. And that's what exactly happened with me. I was like, okay, I want to be able to add value to the people out here, but I didn't know what is that feeling or what is that expression, but now I know it.
Great. And like with all leaders, right? We learn from success. We also learn with some failures as well. And it would be really nice to kind of, for people who are watching or listening, for you to possibly share, like, have there been some key learnings in like your journey as a leader that has resonated, say, over the last couple of years?
See, if I tell you now, what I'm trying is, I'm not trying to give a flamboyant picture on this podcast, Andrew, and there's a purpose to it. If you will see, I have put across everything that's quite candid, and I'm telling that I'm learning, I'm telling that this is something I used to do, and this is, and I don't want to paint a picture and make people feel that, oh wow, oh my god, no, that's not how it is. In practical world, nothing is perfect, and you grow by every single day, and it's the mindset that you need to have in the right place, which is very important. I feel that some of the silliest mistake that I have done, as simple as crashing on my health, as simple as maybe not giving my 100% on a podcast, or not being able to rock it in a meeting. Now, why was it? I'm not talking about big failures. Big failures are okay. I mean, for my audiences, that for your audiences, Andrew, who are hearing us, they would have heard it from every speaker. I'm talking about small failures, because I have learned this from Ron Malhotra. He's a business leader in Australia, and he says that, Kush, let me tell you, a failure that happens, a big failure that happens, it is not because of the reason why it happened. There are a series of events that leads to that failure, the big failure. And if you can identify those series, that big failure will not happen at all. It's our probably it's our ignorance, and it's our small little decisions. Even the decisions of not taking a decision is something that you got to make sure that you take it well. Only then you can prevent from big failures. So I would talk about these small failures a little bit. There has been incidences where I've not been able to perform my 100%, and that makes me feel like, I mean, sorry for my language, shit. I mean, I don't like it. I mean, seriously, this is one of the worst things. And my only big goal in my life is to sleep like a baby every single night. That's my biggest goal. I mean, if I can achieve every single night to sleep like a baby, I think I have done my deal, because I don't know what's happening tomorrow. So I want to make sure that every day I'll achieve that goal. But these little mistakes, how I could avoid it is by being more proactive, but at the same time slow, but at the same time maybe pause a little, give a break to myself, maybe take a breather, have me time, which is very important, just taking a pause, doing nothing, having a nothing calendar, a calendar which says nothing, which means you're actually not doing anything, not even watching Netflix, not even doing, maybe sitting and looking outside the window. I mean, that's all what you're doing. So I believe my biggest learnings or biggest failures are these small little failures, which I want to avoid and reduce the frequency and bring it to zero. And I'm glad that I've been able to do it since a lot, starting last year end, and making sure that I take some tiny little breaks, making sure that I take a breather. And if I know I'm not at my 100%, I will actually make sure that I will go ahead and bring myself, gather myself, and be able to perform. So, because as a leader or as an entrepreneur and as a founder to the company, it's a lonely sport. Trust me. You don't have many people to express. You don't have people to talk, and you have not got too many people to tell your you can't go out and shout loud your downsides, or oh shit, today is something that, how should I even seek for a help, or unless you're blessed with multiple mentors in life, and that's a different story. But what happens in that situation is that you have to struggle and juggle a lot of things, physically, mentally, emotionally. So it's important to align oneself, and that would be my biggest learning from all those tiny failures, because any big failure that happened with me was a big crash on my health. It was a huge crash on my health. So I think I would suggest, if you're going too hard on yourself, just make sure that you're taking the right food intake, right time of rest, the me time, and then making sure that you're able to gather yourself well.
Interesting. Would you go back, if you had to go back to your younger self, like 18, would you ever kind of give that advice to them or to yourself, or would your younger self be like, nah, I'm going to go balls to the walls, I'm going to go hard?
I started my first, I started my work experience at the age of 16 and a half, somewhere close to 17. So that's when I started working. And I think a piece of advice that I would give to myself if I was, I think that's the question, right? If
Yeah.
I'm getting you, okay, a piece of advice I would give it to myself is I'm really stuck here because this one is something. What would be that piece of advice that I would give to myself?
I would think you would give advice to your younger self to be like, hey, I know you're ambitious. I know you want to move quick, but just every once in a while, just slow down for a minute. Just,
Yeah,
be
I think I will.
appreciative.
Yeah, I will do that. I will actually. I think with the, oh, Andrew, I love you for this one. I think if I go back, I would, because I don't remember a lot of those years. I remember it, but I have a habit of not being able to look back. So, like, you look back on your joys and you look back on your even sorrows, or you just look back so that it just keeps you reminded of what happened, and especially the happy moments. You need them to remember and carry in your bags forever. But I'm very bad at that. So I will just, I'm more like running forward and not towards that. So I think if I have to give one advice to my younger self is, Kush, please create a look back bag and start collecting memories which you don't close it, but you actually keep looking at it and remind yourself of the first project, the first client, the biggest team that you build for a project, and then in the first office, and then you expand it to the, I mean, all of these things you want to collect it in the bag and you always want to look back. So yes, Andrew, thank you so much for giving me that hint. It really gave me a realization of what I wanted to advise myself.
All good, all good. But wrapping up, like one piece of advice that I would love for you to provide would be if you were to be talking to a senior leader, CEO, or a C-suite stakeholder about leadership, about building resilience, with your experience as a leader yourself, leader to leader, talking to them, what kind of advice would you give them?
Listen more, talk less.
And that's it.
That's it. That's
That's
it.
it.
Seriously, that's it. Because I have seen CEOs who are always in a position where they are in a state where they want to put a point of view and they want to share. So it's important to be a listener, because when you are sitting at the top of the pyramid, you can't see what's happening at the bottom, and that can be your biggest failure. You don't know what's happening in the trenches, and you don't know what's your low line, I mean bottom line, talking about you. You want your ears open and you want to listen to them. Be approachable, take feedbacks. If you are listening to the voice of your own team members, you'll find answers for your outsiders as well, which is like your clients, corporates, investors, partners. You'll find it's all within the company. So for the C-suits specifically, who are people, because they are like, I call it, they're like lions, but at the same time you have to calm down, listen what's happening, and then take a call.
Nice. The way you just described it reminded me of a previous guest that I was talking about leadership with them. And one of the things that this particular guest did was, for the first couple of weeks and subsequently afterwards, every once in a while, he would go down to the lower floors and speak to some of the staff members, get to know them, especially when there's new staff members who might be timid, might be shy around senior leadership. He broke down that wall and be able to kind of invite people to talk, share their interests outside of work, get to know them personally. And I think that point of talk less, listen more, which is what you just said before, really kind of resonated with me, the way you just described it. So Kush, thank you so much for sharing that. And Kush, for anyone that wants to get in touch with you, what are the best channels to get in touch with you?
I think LinkedIn will be one of the best and being my favorite, followed by, of course, I'm on Instagram, pretty much kind of active, and that's where also you can get in touch with me. But my whole and soul preference is LinkedIn, guys. Look me out there. I would love to connect.
Definitely. And for anyone who's watching or listening, I'll put them in the show notes, in the description below. So Kush, thank you so much for your time. and for your energy into this podcast. And I can feel it. I can watch it. I can see it. I can hear it as well, which is fantastic. And for everyone who's watching and listening, thank you so much for joining. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Andrew, can I just say something?
Yeah. Go for it.
I love that. That was quite candid. I love that. No problem there. You know what? Something I want to say, if anybody is watching this, the people who are watching this, probably they aspire to be a leader or they're already leaders. But this one is a special advice for anybody who's aspiring to be a leader. I want to say everyone can be a leader. Everyone. It's a skill and you can develop. But don't get too desperate about it, please. Just don't focus on being a leader. Focus on adding value, focus on uplifting people, focus on inspiring people, empowering them. Automatically, when you have people who will listen to you, who will look up to you, you are already a leader in that group, and that group automatically multiplies, if you're doing well. So having a mindset of not chasing to be a leader, but a mindset to empower people around you, help them, will automatically put you in that position.
Nice. Give. I like that. Empower and give and add value. I love it. All right. For anyone who's watching, listening, that's a bonus clip right there. Thank you so much, Kush. Thank you so much. And for everyone watching, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.